Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. My name is Ken Tenser, CEO of SpyderWorks, a leading business consultancy for mid-market organizations and entrepreneurs globally. With me today is Harmy Mendoza, Executive Director at Women Abuse Council of Toronto, a nonprofit organization working collaboratively to end violence against women and advance gender equity through research, policy, community mobilization, and education. Like this video if you enjoy our show and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Harmy Mendoza, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Harmy, you've been the executive director of Women Act for 15 years. That's commitment and passion, but there's got to be just a pull on your heartstrings. I mean, this is not an easy area to work within. And so just tell us a little bit about you and what led you to making this long-term commitment for better.
It comes from hope, really. That's where the fire comes from. My hope is that anyone experiencing violence is able to access all supports necessary to be free from violence. It also comes from witnessing the commitment, quite frankly, the resiliency and courage staff, frontline women who are providing these services every day. It also comes from hearing the voices of those who have experienced violence themselves. And so it's important, it's a very important component we integrate in our work. We center our work on the voices of women who have experienced it. And so it comes from that place of maybe having a better world, safer world, free from violence.
Thank you for the sentiment and thank you for the commitment. Why you? And what I mean by that is there's a lot of good in our world, but there's so much wrong in our world, and so many people just sort of recognize it and keep walking. But you've stopped. I mean, outside of hope, what is it inside you that drives you to, again, to be this voice of better and hope for a community?
Someone's got to do it. Someone has to be always raising the voice. Someone has to be always identifying those key components of what would make our system more responsive to survivors. And you are absolutely right. It's a complex type of work. So I think one of the important components of my life as a person is that I try to keep a balance. I try to make sure that I do take care of myself. I make sure that I have the support I need myself as a professional because I can only give if I have. And so it's very important to have a balanced life. It's very important to have those supports in place so that as a professional, as a woman, I can continue to give. And so that is key. And that your question actually made me reflect a little bit about one very important award we used to give before the pandemic started. It was called the Soul of a Warrior Awards, and we would give it to frontline staff who had been doing this work for 20, 25 years. But not only doing this work, their work was just amazing. The commitment, they were identified and nominated by colleagues. And so they would tell us stories, narratives of what they've seen um, and in the line of work. And the stories were just impressive about, again, once again, the commitment, the idea that we all deserve to live free from violence, to have a better life, to change patterns, to challenge systemic oppressions and so forth. And so I think that if 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 I can speak about why me and why so long and how do I continue this, even though it's a sad, it actually touches your heart. It's a very sad topic. It touches your heart every time. It's because I do take care of myself. And so it's important to keep a balance. It's important to have the supports you need. Just like we look for supports for our clients, it's important that you have that support, the support that you need. And then you do something fun aside. Do you take care of
Hmm.
yourself? You There are good in life, and there are good things that we've done in regards to the issue as well.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I have to imagine that through the pandemic, I mean, there has to have been some kind of magnifier. I mean, I just think of how many, in general, the emotional, the mental health issues, the stress, unfortunately, must have exacerbated the need in a time where it was probably very hard to provide that need or care for it.
Oh, absolutely. The COVID-19 pandemic had a significant impact on survivors of gender-based violence, but also the organizations that supported them. If you remember, health and safety measures to curb the spread of the virus have resulted in some survivors facing additional economic and social pressures. We
Mm-hmm.
kept asking community members to isolate, to stay home and be safe. But what if staying home did not mean to be safe?
Right.
Because victims were now isolated with abusive partners. And so it absolutely highlighted how much more we needed to do. Um, Woman Act, the organization I represent, works very closely with those who provide the actual service. And at the beginning of the pandemic, actually in 2020, we consulted with service providers. And let me just share one important statistic with you around that consultation. 58 of the respondents spoke to the increasing risks that survivors are facing as a result of being socially isolated with abusive partners.
Mm-hmm.
So isolation is a very good friend with violence. And so we kept asking community members to isolate to be safe. But we were then putting survivors at higher risk because they were even more isolated. There was a lot of important impacts that the pandemic highlighted for us. Um, for example, loss of wages. Um,
Right.
all of a sudden, the complexities and the barriers became bigger. Survivors had even harder time paying rent and bills.
Mm-hmm.
There was a reduced income, and so there were added financial pressures as well. And so it was definitely more complex and more challenging.
I'm not exactly sure how to phrase this properly because I don't think positive comes out of such negatives and the pandemic and what it did to those who are socially isolated in abusive situations or relationships. But did it in some way put it under a microscope and let that come forward for policymakers, other institutions you would work with, come forward and say, wow, this is incredibly real. And unfortunately, it got dialed up, but it also exposed and made it impossible to ignore, if you will.
Absolutely. If I can speak about a positive change, is that there was definitely increased coordination across organizations and sectors,
Okay. Mhm.
particularly public health. Public health and some other levels of government I felt were definitely open to that, and that's an important, I guess, partnership that was tested because we know when I say we, I meant those who work in the gender-based violence arena or sector, how important it is to partner and collaborate with any sector out there. And public health was one important sector that I know we started to work more collaboratively. And so I think that there was definitely that push to do it, and we did it. So I think that if I can speak about something potentially positive is that we were more open to entertain working more closely between sectors.
Again, it's hard to think of a positive coming out of it, but again, as you articulated, I do think that exposure coming out into the open in a much larger or louder way will probably help you and others going forward. So, Woman Act. Let's talk about that. I mean, what is it? When did it start? What was its purpose? Just let us know about the organization that you've been at the helm at.
Yes, absolutely. Woman Act has been doing this work for almost 25 years. And I'm not the funder of the organization, but I have been with the organization for over 15 years now. And we work specifically in three different areas. One of them is everything about collaboration or coordination or leadership, really. It's about exactly that, how to better work with other sectors, with different experts, with different levels of government, with different departments in every of the different levels of government, and also um, women with lived experience and frontline staff and the private sector, you name it. So our work is about strengthening or even launching potential partnerships and collaboration. So that's one area of our work. The second area of our work is everything about uh, policy and recommendation. And so every time a policy changes, it will impact someone. And we make sure that we are present to state how is that going to impact, especially a survivor. And so we undertake consultation, focus groups with community members and women with lived experience. They actually express their thoughts, their opinions, and we are the middle woman. We put the information together, we analyze it, and we share recommendations through every possible channel you may think. Draft op-eds, we go and make deputations, we go to Queen's Park, we go anywhere anyone would listen to us to share what we learn and to share how something will impact survivors, a particular policy piece or even legislation or legislative change. The second area. And the third, newer area, it's about training and education. We go out there and we offer our expertise and support to train, particularly workplaces. And so,
Okay.
how could workplaces respond to disclosures of gender-based violence or sexual harassment, for example,
Mhm.
right? And so we do that. It's a newer area, and we hope that this area will come a long way when it comes to prevention as well, but also responsiveness in workplaces. And it's a small but mighty team, all amazing, committed, smart women who are hoping to come together and make a difference in the world.
Well, it sounds like you're more than hoping. It sounds like you're doing quite a bit. And so what I'm hearing is it, and especially when you talk about workplaces, so is it a form of educational service that
Yes.
you provide?
Yes, absolutely. We do from bystander reactions or responses. all the way to gender-based violence 101, all the way to policy reviews. So we want to make sure that workplaces have comprehensive policies. So we offer that area of work
Hmm.
as well. We want to make sure that those policies have established a trauma-informed reporting mechanism, and that they develop avenues for resolution and referral pathways to support victims of violence. And so it's a wide range of services, and we actually tailor our supports to whatever is it that an organization, a workplace needs. One to two to three employees, all the way to bigger players out there. And
Right.
so the idea is to be able to offer our expertise and support workplaces to respond in different ways, but also taking into consideration the realities of what they deal with every day. That is very important. Otherwise, it's probably not going to be realistic what we're offering. We want to make sure that
Right.
it's tailored to their needs.
And does that carry over to maybe not businesses, but not for profits or organizations that might be dealing with the public every day, helping them to understand what to recognize, what triggers might be going on in an individual?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, everybody should be part of learning how to respond to incidents of violence. Community organizations, private sectors, healthcare sector, um, everybody, everybody needs to be part of this because it's all over our community. Absolutely.
And how is Toronto, Canada, we speak at whatever level you're comfortable. How are we holding up? How are we advancing or supporting, this need to stop gender-based violence and support victims?
We could be doing better. I don't want to sound negative in any way. Um, there is definitely a lot that we need to do, but there have been advances. There had been important changes that have happened, especially uh, not that long ago. And I'm gonna kind of stay within the workplace kind of arena, just because we've been talking about that. But I can think about one policy that um, was implemented not long ago, and that's the domestic or sexual violence leave, which gives employees 10 days of protected leave
Hmm.
or up to 15 weeks, and their job is still protected. This is a provincial policy in Ontario. The first 5 days are paid leave. And so this is very important because we know that women are at higher risk when they are actually leaving the abusive
Right.
relationship or the abusive situation. And so it's important to them to at least have that additional support while they are dealing with so many different challenges when experiencing violence. And so I think, like I said, there is a lot that we need to do. Um, I I think that I could also share a little bit about new ways of responding. I think that we should continue to explore new models that have worked somewhere else.
Right.
We need to continue to innovate. One model that we at WomenAct have been reviewing and have been analyzing lately is the safe at home model. But let me get back a little bit. Let me just explain a little bit the context of it.
Sure.
The focus, the response, or the focus is often that you get people out of the abusive situation, right? But we know that the impact of gender based violence lasts after they get out of the home, right? And I can speak about, for example, the financial hardship that they have to deal with. They go from maybe two income homes to a single income home, for
Hmm.
example. The housing insecurity as well. They have to deal with some issues related to economic abuse, such as coerced debt and poor poor credit, excuse me. We talk about health costs as well, lost wages and relocation, and legal proceedings that are long and costly, uh, especially if we talk about shared child custody, for example.
Right.
And so what we've been kind of reviewing and researching is one model that is working to advance survivors' right to remain in their own homes or independent housing when leaving an abusive relationship. This model is obviously better suited for low risk cases. And the reason why we wanted to review it and we wanted to analyze it is because we know there is an expectation, like I said before, that women and their children should leave the home when fleeing violence. And as
Mm.
a result, they have to deal with very significant life disruptions in areas like employment, service access, and social connections, even that. And so this alternative looks at policies and programs that prioritize women's independence and can enable survivors stay safely in their homes. And so, how do we do that? Well, we think we go at the issue differently. We look at a combination of legal tools, safety measures, and support services that can work to remove the perpetrator from the home and reduce the risk of harm for women and children. But to do that, we have to collaborate and we have to intervene together. I guess people refers to those types of collaborative intervention model
Right.
as safe at home approaches. And so maybe that was a very long answer, but I
No,
guess I just wanted to share a little bit of where what we're doing, right?
I think that's critical.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate it. And so the question I have when listening to that, listening about the leave and the length of leave and removing people from, immediate physical harm and abuse, I imagine the emotional trauma lasts much longer than 10 days or 15 weeks. How is that dealt with? Because I mean, you're again, there's the tangible. We can move somebody, we can create a safe environment, but it doesn't. I'm imagining it doesn't change the emotional insecurity, which again would probably take a very long time to support someone through.
Absolutely. It'll take time and it'll take opportunities to do so. Survivors are resilient. Survivors have survived all this way already.
Mhm.
And I think that it is important to always ensure that they remain at the center of whatever we are developing, whatever we are drafting, as much as possible. I think that it's important to mention that the control should be always or should always remain as much as possible on her hand, on the survivor's
Mhm.
hand, to be able to move ahead. Why? Because every case is different. Every case will have a very individual complexity, and we cannot speak about that healing journey in um, in, in days or months or years.
Right.
Because we know the system is slow, the proceedings are going to be long, are going to be costly, and so and on top of that, the the emotional, mental recovery that needs to take place. But I want to state once again, survivors are incredibly resilient.
Yeah.
They have taught us a lot when it comes to our response systems, our current response systems, and what we should continue to have in place.
Let's change up a little bit here. Safe STEM Workplaces project. What is that, and why did that become a particular importance?
Yeah, the supporting safe STEM project is uh, it's once again going back to the idea that we all have a role to play.
Okay.
And particularly in those industries where we know is usually dominated by men, or you have more men in that industry than women, and it's clear statistically speaking. And so the safe at home works to improve access to legal supports and resources for
Mm.
victims of sexual harassment. And we know that it's statistically speaking, victims are mostly women. And so we want them to make sure that we work with the STEM industries, workplaces across Canada. We are working in collaboration with the Society for Canadian Women in Science and Technology on this project. And our hope is that together we can develop tailored support and training to help workplaces prevent sexual harassment. Again, going back to the conversation around policies, we want to make sure that these um, workplaces have developed comprehensive policies and have established trauma informed reporting mechanisms that can support avenues for resolution and referral pathways as well.
Well, I think the whole thing is an incredible initiative, and I think it comes down to, what I'm hearing is it's not okay. Pain and persecution of anybody is not okay, and it's not the norm, or it certainly shouldn't be accepted or considered a norm on any level. And I think that what you're doing is just, you and your organization is just wonderful. So as our time comes to a close, Harmy, there's a school of thought that says, you put things out to the universe and they come back to you. So what is that one wish for 2023 for Women Act? What is that one thing you'd like to put out there, a policy, a need, or whatever you choose,
Thank you.
to finish up our chat?
I have a magic. If I had a magic wand,
Yeah, that's it.
I would love to build more and more partnerships with different sectors, with different experts. I think that we need everybody's help. We need everybody's areas of expertise. So if I have a wish and if I have a goal, I say it'll be to have many more different partners joining me in this journey to eventually have a place that is safer for those who are experiencing violence.
That is a wonderful wish. Thank you for that. I do hope it comes true, and I hope that this recording in some small way helps you get a little tiny bit further ahead on that journey. So, Harmy Mendoza, thank you so much again for joining us today.
It is my pleasure, and thank you for allowing me to share a little bit of our work. And we truly appreciate you helping us raise the awareness of this important issue. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.